everyone. I had mentioned last year that I had placed an order for a supposed in-stock Dollstown 17-year-old Vision body in August of 2021 that turned out to be incorrectly listed as in stock. I had mixed feelings on what I wanted to do to address the situation, but ultimately, I still wanted to get the body even if it had to now become a pre-order. Given that, I asked that they convert the order from the fresh resin color to the oriental resin color. About 200 days after I placed my order, I posted on the Q&A board to ask if there were any updates on the body, and it turned out that they had been planning on shipping it out the following week. About 2 weeks after that, the body was home. It comes in a plain box with the signature Dollstown packing filler, which looked like starfruit, and the body looks like it's been mummified in bubble wrap. I do appreciate that Dollstown lets you order the body and the head separately, and that they have COAs for both. I don't quite remember where along my journey of resin BJD collecting where I decided I wanted no identical bodies, and this body definitely has its distinctive features. What drew me to this body was her shapely butt, if I'm being perfectly honest. And also, that the torso is smaller and more likely to fit more generic SD tops that my other girls are too large for. I realized that as much as I enjoy making clothes for my dolls, I simply don't have that much time, so I'm giving myself permission to purchase more outfits in the future. The Dollstown sculpting has some interesting details. Obviously, this body is stylized and very much on the skinny side, so her bones protrude at the ribs, hips, and the vertebrae on the back of her neck. So now that I have 5 different larger female bodies from 3 different Korean companies, I thought it would be helpful to go over the aspects of each that I've noticed. Here they are laid out on my fabric cutting mat to give a sense of height. I did my best to line them up at the base of their feet and went roughly from tallest to shortest from left to right. I would have included my Dollstown elf or 7-year-old body, but I simply did not because my mat wasn't large enough. Also, I did own the Feeple 65 body, but I decided that it was too much of an hourglass shape for the height of the doll to fit with my collection. I don't know if you've ever tried to pose resin dolls hugging each other, but having ample chests limit how closely you can position them together. That body is now with its new owner, and they are definitely making more use of the body than I did. Each body has things that I like and dislike about them. And as I own different bodies, it is interesting to see the trade-offs the artist makes in favor of either aesthetics or engineering for posability. One thing immediately apparent in this lineup is that the 2 Ipple House dolls have their string channels on the upper thigh pieces hidden. Instead of having the slots on the front, they have them on the side towards the center of the body. To compensate for the placement and direction change, they also have this little piece that is supposed to lock into the notches that are regular intervals in the hip joint. The ones towards the top of the body seem to engage better than the ones towards the rear. Prior to hot glue sueding, I usually had little success getting the piece to actually lock. After sueding, it seems to catch better, or maybe it's simply the added friction, but this body can sit up at 90 degrees now without falling backwards. Of all my girls, I love the color of this resin most, and it photographs beautifully. The Supia Ballerina body has the largest hips, and the most number of joints of my current collection. I don't really go into the ones on the shoulder, but I will acknowledge that they are there. This is the only doll that I have that has a waist joint, which I only find marginally useful. I haven't sueded this doll, so it tends to go back to neutral position unless I have it completely engaged. But then that breaks the silhouette of the doll. The thigh mobility joint for Supia is impressive and can add length to the thigh to balance against the calf's length. There are interesting poses that this body is capable of, but I've probably played with this body the least. The Dalshi body is the one I gravitate to aesthetically. I really like the broad shoulders and how naturally the bust is sculpted, especially when compared to the new YID or the Supia body. The Dalshi bust is less perky, for lack of a better descriptor. I really like the more realistic proportion of the thigh to the calf on this body. When compared to the new SID body, you can see how the knees hit differently on the leg. One thing I knew going in when purchasing the Dollstown body was that it can't really sit 90 degrees. I don't know if it bothers me yet, and I'm still trying to think through what I want to do about it, if anything. I'm still on the fence when it comes to subtractive modifications, but if I were to make an indentation into the thigh piece to allow the hip joint to catch, or shave away at the hip joint itself, it could sit much more upright. But there is nice sculpting on the hip bones for the Dollstown body, which makes shaving it a poor choice. This doll desperately needs some sueding because the thigh pieces have a tendency to swivel within the socket where the elastic channels want to point inwards. This in turn makes the butt cheeks splay outwards, which makes posing challenging, and the doll does not currently stand by itself very well. The knees are also interesting and divergent. The new YID and the Dollstown Vision both have their knee peanuts completely hidden from the front. This makes the silhouette of the leg look very natural when the doll is standing, but make it much harder to bend the legs completely without having both hands. It is extra challenging when the dolls are wearing pants. Also, because the peanut has to be small enough to be encased, the knee, when fully bent, does not have as natural of a curve. The middle three bodies have their knee peanuts exposed, and these also have their trade-offs. The Ippohaus new SID thigh and the calf parts are completely separated by the knee, whereas the Dalshi 16F and the Supia ballerina have the thigh and calf pieces still surrounding the peanut, which help prevents the doll from buckling at the knees. Here I have the bodies on their sides so you can see their curvature and see the profile view. It surprised me that the slope of the lower back to the butt cheeks were all fairly extreme, save the Dalshi one. Also from the side, the thigh girths look about the same, but are drastically different from the frontal view. Supia doll's feet are still so comical to me how pancaked the heel looks and juts out, but at least it's a ball joint and I have other feet that I can swap it with. The Ippohaus new YID feet still have the ball/curve part sculpted into the calf piece instead of the ball on the feet. Ippohaus has since changed that for the new SID feet, which makes swapping out feet less challenging. Here I try to have my dolls seated upright. This isn't the best angle to show this, but you can see that the two Ippohaus and the Dalshi body do fairly well sitting straight. The Supia and Dollstown body are leaning back pretty dramatically. The Supia body at least has a waist joint for me to have her lean forward, but the Dollstown body doesn't have anything to help. I've complained about the length of calves for BJDs quite a bit. Where it is noticeable is when I try to have them seated, but their knees bent. One pose I like to try to do is having the doll hug their legs. In almost all the bodies, the calves are too long, which causes that particular pose to raise their butts off the surface. I don't use that pose often, so I'm not bothered enough to do anything about it. I need to play with these dolls' bodies some more before I have much more to report on. And again, these are just my observations. Your experiences and preferences may be different than mine. I am overall happy with the variation and super excited to sew some more pieces for the new Vision body. I have a couple of male bodies incoming that I ordered last year, and I plan on doing a video showing their differences as well. Anyway, that's all for this time. I hope you have a good one. Bye!